Wrestling fans, if you like what you've seen, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also don't forget to ring that bell.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Big Time Memories. I'm Terry Sullivan. This is Dave Drason. And today, one of our favorites and one of the favorites of the viewers out there who have really sent in a lot of positive comments about the Dressing Room Confidential. A bunch of random stories that you and I have seen over the years, and most of them told for the very first time.
Yeah, these are, things that, we thought about, we've talked amongst ourselves about, but they've never been written or related to the fans before. And hopefully we got a dandy for them today.
I think so. Well, the first one was seen by some people, though, in person, right?
Yes. This one, and we have footage of this one once I describe what's going on here. It's about Ricky Cortez, Ricky the Crusher Cortez. In the 1980, he was starting his promotion, with, other guys and a lot of the big-time wrestling stars. And he decided he needed a wrestling ring.
Of course.
So he's going to build it himself.
Uh-oh.
So Ricky Cortez, takes it upon himself to build a wrestling ring for his promotion. So the very first time that it was used wasn't for his promotion. In 1980, I think this would have been in October of 1980, Ron Martinelli and Louis Martinez started a small promotion. Ron Martinelli got a big settlement because at the time, or a couple years earlier, he was coming out of a dry cleaners with his, clothes, and a car inadvertently went in reverse instead of going forward and pinned him against the brick wall of the cleaners. And he held it off, enough, but he was still injured.
Yeah.
And he ended up getting maybe $750,000. So what better way to spend that money?
Could have bought the Sheik's house.
Well, he could have, but let's start a wrestling promotion.
Yeah,
so there's a great way to lose your money fast.
Absolutely.
So on this promotion, they were going to use Ricky Cortez's ring for the very first time. And in the opening match that night, Ricky Cortez versus Al Barr. There's a dandy. You can see excitement just generating from that ring.
Quite a pair to draw to.
So anyway, what happened was the bell rings, they shake hands, and then they come, and I think Ricky gave Al Barr a fireman's carry, puts him down. They both get up, look at each other, okay, and then get back together, and Al Barr gives Ricky Cortez a fireman's, carry. It's like, oh, boy. So then Ricky Cortez goes to one of his all-time favorite moves. He grabs Al Barr, takes him by the hair, and he pulls him back by the ropes. And then he knocks him down, and then he takes, Ricky Cortez puts his one foot on Al Barr's wrist. And then he takes the other foot and 1, 2, 3, stomps on it, and then he pulls himself up on the ropes and jumps down with both feet on his hand. Our Al Barr is just writhing in pain. And then Ricky, I got to give it to him again. So he puts his foot on his wrist, and then he goes 1, 2, 3, stomps on his hand, and he jumps up on the rope, and he comes down, and the whole ring collapses. They went right through the boards.
No.
And when you can see this footage, you'll see what I'm talking about. And then when you see in slow motion, once he comes down, and then everybody, the referee, Al Barr, and Ricky Cortez, they can't be seen at all. They just
sink
went
into
straight,
oblivion.
And
from
that's what happened.
came.
And then it took 45 minutes for them to go find some more 2x4s, to work that side of the ring. Wow. And the rest of the night, we were told, when you're working on that side of the ring, try to stay away from that point. So, and you fans will see this footage, and hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I did.
The
for
one and
these
only
years.
appearance of Ricky Cortez's masterwork.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. And
then there was a time, I have to bring this one up, funny story. It concerns the destroyer, the mass destroyer, Dick Beyer.
Okay.
This was about 4 or 5 years ago. I was asked to be the MC at the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame induction ceremonies by the president at that time, Tony Villano. Tony Villano, I've known for, number of years, going to the induction ceremonies. And the one time I was asked to do the ceremonies for the Titans in Toronto, put together by the Megan Boys and Greg Oliver. And it was like a lot of the Hamilton crew, was there. And I did this opening monologue that Tony Villano just fell in love with. And one day, on one of our segments here, I'll have to do this monologue for you. And Tony Villano, he just loved it. And at that time, he says, will you be the master of ceremonies at the induction ceremonies for the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame? How could I turn that down?
Good gig. Probably made a lot of money, right?
Zero. But, I got my room free and dinners and stuff like that. And it's
you
the
get to hang out.
prestige. And, it's all about being with, your, fans and friends, there.
Sure.
So anyway, I'm the MC. And I'm introducing like J.J. Dillon and Davey O'Hannon and Tony Villano and, all the other guys. And then it came to, I had to do this one segment that, I had to relate to the fans in attendance. And it's like when we were young, ribs. We, saw ribs happen against guys, and, we were some of the butt of a few of the ribs at times.
Yeah.
But when we were young, we didn't do ribs, because, we would get in trouble, or get our, behinds, handed to us.
We knew our place.
We were always told to keep our eyes and ears open and your mouth shut, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was any rib. So, and that's what, we did for many years. And then, fast forward 40, 45 years, I would be, the very first time it was at Cauliflower Alley Club in Las Vegas. And I had known that Killer Tim Brooks was going to be there.
Oh, okay.
So I couldn't wait to see him. So I'm figuring, well, this is the first time I'm seeing my friend in 45 years. I got to pull a rib on him. It's my first chance to pull a rib. And what kind of rib can I do that wouldn't be harmful or, dirty, nasty, like some guys would do? So I come up with this scheme. And my rib was this. I see Killer Tim Brooks across the room. And I go over to him. And I don't look anything like I did when I was a kid. The photographer and the manager.
Yeah.
So I go over to him, and he doesn't recognize me at all, which was perfect. So anyway, I says, Mr. Brooks, I'm from, the Detroit area. And my mother, who was attending wrestling at the time, said that she was sort of dating you. And, I don't know, but you could possibly be my father. And Brooks, the look in his eyes, and it's like, wow, well, what? And then I had like Al Friend and a couple other guys, standing near me, doing this rib, and they started laughing like, hysterically. And Brooks is like, he didn't know what to do, And then, I said, Dave Brzezinski. Remember, I was the photographer, and I managed. Oh, Dave Drason. It's like, so anyway, that's how I got Killer Tim Brooks.
Brooks probably is saying deja vu.
Yeah. So anyway, now back to the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame induction ceremonies.
Okay.
Who could I do this to? So anyway, I related this story on how I ribbed Killer Tim Brooks that he possibly could be my father. So I, says also, well, there was another incident that happened, and I think I have proof that there is a wrestler in this room that could possibly also be my father, because somebody was over my house one day with my mother, and they left something behind. And I've saved it all these years. And I'm going to reveal to you fans what my mother kept all these years and what I have. And I brought it here to show you. And everybody's, like, uh-oh. And all the wrestlers are like, uh-oh. So the Destroyer, Dick Beyer, is sitting right next to me over here. So I crouch down into the, from the dais, and his wife had given me one of his masks. And I'm down here, I put on a Destroyer mask, and I slowly come up, and everybody starts laughing, and I look over, and I go, Dad! The Destroyer about fell out of his chair laughing. And so we had a good laugh about that, and that's my rib on the Destroyer, Dick Beyer.
That's a really good one.
Yeah. And, if I, come across any other wrestlers, and there's not many alive, from our big-time memories area, or big-time wrestling area, I had always wanted to do this one to Tony Marino. Because I knew the girl from Defiance, Ohio, that he used to, mess around with a little bit, here and there. So I would have, done the same thing, pulled that same rib on him, and said, you could possibly be my dad.
Yeah.
So if there's,
you would have come out with a big wig on or something.
Yeah, and I would have pulled it off. But there's, like I said, there's not many guys left that who I could pull this on, and I know I can't pull it on Fred Curry because I've seen him over the years, and maybe Cowboy Bob Ellis, or
there you go.
One of the guys.
Yeah,
we'll have to research, and let's see who I can do that one up against.
Okay, my turn.
Your turn.
Okay.
I got a story from you.
One of the things I'm asked a lot about is my early days in professional wrestling, how I got started, how I met the Sheik, blah, blah, blah. One of the things people are interested in is my very first appearance at the Cobo Arena. And this happened not long after my very first meeting with the Sheik, which we'll talk about another time. But here I am, set to go to the Cobo Arena. We were taping television that night, so this is going to be my first time on television, anything other than college, the big time professional television, that I'm making my debut at the Cobo Arena. So I'm living in Cincinnati at that time, heading up the highway, heading up I-75. I get about to Dayton and realize that I've forgotten half my tux, the bow tie for the tux. I had to wear the tuxedo back then. So I found a place at the mall, got the bow tie back on the road, get to the Cobo Arena. Okay, it's sold out, 12,000 people for my first appearance at the Cobo Arena. Nervous? Oh, heck no, not at all.
A pro.
Absolutely. So got up there, got into the ring, did my thing, did the television, and comes time for the Sheik's match, and here he comes. And little did I know what he might have had in mind, but it was a little bit of, perhaps you might call it, hazing. Because he gets in the ring and he takes a look at me, and I'm thinking, uh-oh. Got to make a quick exit, stage left.
Did he chase you?
Not only did he chase me, but he caught me. I thought, oh, God, here we go. And this is on tape somewhere, probably ashes by now. But he came up from behind me, grabbed me by the hair, which I still had, a pretty copious amount at that point in time, and tried to pull me down backwards, and I wouldn't go down. My little legs are still trying to move toward the other side of the ring and get out of the ring. But eventually, he just forced me down and slam. I hit the mat hard like that, and about that time, here comes Johnny Valentine. He came into the ring and saved me. So that was my first time ring announcing. After the Cobo Arena show was done, we had to do promos for the next 2 weeks of television, which would lead us into the next show at Cobo. And it was a rematch between the Sheik and Johnny Valentine, and the very first time I ever did a promo, one of those 2-minute commercial cells for the next Cobo Arena show. So I'm ready to start. On one side of the camera, the Sheik, standing there like this, giving me the eye. On the other side of the camera, Johnny Valentine. And I thought, well, you SOBs, you think you're going to throw me? No way. This is what I've dreamt of my whole life. I've got what it takes. I know I have what it takes, and I'm going to nail this, and I'm going to hit a home run with it. Ladies and gentlemen, coming back to the Cobo Arena next Saturday night, the action explodes in center ring as the Sheik and Johnny Valentine are out to annihilate each other. And the Sheik sort of turns around, walks away, so does JV. And says, thank you, my lord, I passed the audition.
Yeah. Now, did you get to do, at the very beginning, ask the crowd to stand for the national anthem?
National anthem, yeah.
That was...
yeah, and all the matches are brought to you under the direct supervision of the Michigan State Athletic Board of Control, Charles W. Davey, Chairman.
Yeah. Boy, and that was a great national anthem that they played at Cobo, too.
Yeah.
Because
you had the big flag in the background.
Yeah, big flag in the background, and they lit it up, red, white, and blue.
Right.
Yeah, a great night for you.
Yeah, yeah. Geez, I'll never forget it.
Yeah, and, thank God that you stuck with it, many, many years. And,
yeah.
And now you got the nasty duty to host Big Time Memories with me.
They all showed the tape where he pulled me down the next day in the studio. Everybody, all the wrestlers were there laughing at it. Okay. I think it was probably a little test to see if I would come back or not. And I did. Because a lot of people, not so much announcers, but wrestlers, they'll give them a little bit of a hazing, if you will, just to see if they'll come back.
Even though you did, mainly ring announcing first, how did you get into, color commentary?
Well, at that particular point in time, the reason they brought me in was because that was one of Leighton's vacations in Australia. This time he was gone for at least a year, if not 2. So, and Bob Finnegan had gone by then. So there was Lord Leighton one week. The next week it was Chuck Allen and Tex McKenzie on commentary, and I was doing the ring announcing. And then we started doing the 2 tapes of the same show. We did the one tape, which was the main tape,
right.
And then we did a second version on a different audio track, which was Worldwide Wrestling. So we did Big Time Wrestling on one track and Worldwide Wrestling on another track. And eventually they did 2 totally different tapes. But initially it was just different announcers calling the same matches. Mm-hmm. And that's how I started with commentary. And
thank God you did.
Yeah.
At least me and, wrestling fans, in the Big Time wrestling area. You're a household name.
yeah, something.
Yeah. Let me see if I can come up with another story. Let me go back to, my days when, as a young kid. This would have been, I think, like 1967, 1968. So I was like 12, 13 years old. And after the Cobo shows, we would always, like some of us fans, would be lucky enough to have tickets for the Sunday TV tapings over in Windsor. Mm-hmm. So take the tunnel bus over and, walk over to CKLW, Channel 9 studios, and we got to watch, 2 one-hour shows. Mm-hmm. And then, you got to see the board that showed the lineup for, the show coming up in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And, you got to see, the squash matches and everything like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, this particular day, one particular match involved Killer Carl Cox. And he was quite a jokester, quite a ribber, but he was mean and nasty, and fans hated him.
Definitely.
And, more than anything on his commentary, Lord Leighton really, came across with that commentary, how hated he was.
Yeah.
And I don't think him and Leighton got along too well because they were both in Australia, for many years, wrestling, and I know Leighton went against him. So I don't know if Leighton had anything bad, against him at this time. So anyway, it's going to be, a 5-minute or less squash match, and I can't even remember the opponent. It was an enhancement talent. Mm-hmm. So this particular day, Killer Carl Cox starts the match. He's wailing on the guy. And at one point, he probably told the guy, in the ring, he says, "Give me an atomic knee drop." So At one point, the guy goes around Killer Carl Cox, grabs him by the stomach, picks him up, and drops him on his knee. And Killer Carl Cox selling it. Oh boy, he's selling it. And at one point, he's like, ugh, and he goes over to the corner right by the camera. And he puts his hand down the back of his wrestling trunks. And it's like, and then he pulls it up, and it's like, he's got brown. Something dripping off his fingers. And he's looking at it, and he's looking at it, and he goes, and he starts smelling it, and then the next thing you know, Killer Carl Cox does this. He starts, and the fans are like, oh my God, what the heck is going on here? And Lord Layton is, beside himself.
Hello, what have we here?
Hello, what do we have here? And, oh God, it was a segment that, I'm sure they showed it on TV.
I don't ever remember seeing it. I don't know how they could have.
Oh, I remember that to this day.
Had it.
Yeah, but if anything, that segment made me care for a piece of chocolate.
Where's that been?
Yeah. And what ended up happening was Killer Carl Cox, to mess with, everybody, the promotion and stuff, took a Hershey bar and put it between his cheeks, under his trunks, and by wrestling and, beforehand, well, it kind of, melted in a little bit away.
Yeah.
And, when he did that knee drop and did that whole thing, it's like, whew, oh boy, piece of chocolate.
Wow, that's a real refreshing story.
Changing gears here, Terry.
Switching gears, yes, very quickly. How about the announcers? We talked about, people talk about various announcers. People say, where's this guy? Where's that guy? Let's talk a little bit about some of the announcers who have graced your screen with big-time wrestling over the years.
Yeah, well, I mean, first and foremost, everybody will remember Lord Layton.
Lord Layton, yeah.
But you have to go, farther back than that. You had, like on Motor City Wrestling, you had Johnny Schlegel.
Johnny, yeah, he was a staff announcer for WXYZ, Motor City Wrestling.
Right.
Yeah.
Fred Wolf.
Right, yeah.
And this one I don't think you would know. Dennis James.
Dennis James, the actor?
Yes, actor and TV guy, and would be on Truth or Consequences or whatever those shows were.
He announced Detroit?
Yeah, for
Really?
Motor City Wrestling.
No kidding.
Yep.
Wow, I thought he was a national guy.
No, he
I'll be
was
darned.
here.
Okay.
Well, you got to bring in the best.
Yeah, Fred Wolf, you mentioned his name. He is very highly thought of. Was a sort of a media mogul in a way, and made a lot of money doing Motor City Wrestling, and for them too, with his commentary.
And who else would you remember?
Well, there's a couple of, Chuck Allen.
Chuck Allen.
Chuck was he was a jack of all trades. He was a ladies' man, and made no secret of that. And as a matter of fact, one time, it turned out that one of his ladies lived in a town called Williamston, Michigan. And there was a certain other person who lived in Williamston, Michigan, who had a great sensitivity about anything which might reflect badly on him, especially the fact that this lady friend lived across the street.
Oh no.
From the Sheik on East Grand River in Williamston, Michigan. And one night the Sheik found out about it, and he got Chuck at Cobo. And I think this is when they were flying Chuck up from Florida.
Yeah.
Eventually he moved from Michigan to Florida, and the Sheik got on him about it, and Chuck was just laughing it off, making a jest about it. And I'm thinking to myself, man, if I were you and the Sheik was giving me a lecture, I wouldn't laugh it off. I'd sure say sayonara to that senorita for sure. But, old Chuck was from Michigan for a long time. He did the weather on TV Channel 10. in Jackson. I can remember doing promos in Toledo, or he was doing promos before I started in the afternoon. It got to be about 4 or 5 o'clock, and it's like, man, Chuck, you got to get back to Jackson and get on the air for the 6 o'clock news. Of course, he wasn't a meteorologist. He just ripped the forecast off the news wire and read it. But yeah, he was quite a character. And people say, whatever happened to Chuck Allen? He must be dead. And he may be. I don't know. Somebody on Facebook said recently that Chuck had died. And I replied to them and I said, how do you know that? And I don't think I ever got a response to that. And I don't know. He was in Florida. I heard he went to California, but I have never seen an obituary. I've never seen any kind of official documentation that he's passed away. He may have, but I really don't know what happened to him.
I don't know either. Hopefully he's still alive, and maybe we can get him on the show one day.
Yeah, there you go.
And then we also his partner and predecessor, Bob Finnegan.
Oh, my mentor, one of the greatest guys I've ever known. Bob Finnegan was born in Chicago. Came here from Amarillo. Jack Kane, who was the booker, who arranged a lot of the matches and things for the Sheik, came here from Amarillo and knew Bob. He was a DJ on a radio station down there, also a musician. Later on, made his living as a musician. Wrote the Ballad of Bobo Brazil.
Oh, yeah.
Became a country singer under the name of R.C. Finnegan.
Right.
Eventually, though, he left big-time wrestling, went to work for Johnny Powers in Cleveland, the National Wrestling Federation, did some work in Canada with Canadian Roller Derby, and ended up here again about the time we started with the TV truck, the remote unit. And he was in charge of marketing the remote unit, getting gigs for the remote unit with non-wrestling type endeavors,
college
which he
football, college basketball, concerts.
Yep, did the concerts, did the Seeger Show, did Bachman Turner Overdrive.
Right.
And let's see, what else? Did an outdoors show, did a kids show, which Bob wrote original music for. They did a Motown type review in downtown Detroit. So did a lot of different things with the TV bus.
Yeah, and then he ended up moving to Scandinavia somewhere.
Norway.
We're not sure. Norway?
Yeah, he died in 2012 in Oslo, Norway. He was 73 years old. And he was the guiding force behind I Like to Hurt People.
Right.
Along with Don Jackson and Brian Greenberg. So
then,
great guy. Had a couple of great kids, Quaid and Lisa. You're in touch with Quaid occasionally, aren't you?
Yep.
Because Quaid's a musician like his father.
Right. And like me, a drummer.
Yeah. There you go.
So that's where, our,
you get the good musician's tie going there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I wish I could play keyboards. Well, not like the organ.
Well, you're a drummer, and Quaid is a drummer also,
yes.
isn't he? Yeah.
That's where our, connection came from.
Okay. Cool.
And then, to round out, besides Lord Layton, Bob Finnegan, Chuck Allen, yourself, what about this guy? Buzz Benson.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, the buzzard. Buzz came in with a formidable task. He came in to help out with the announcing, and he did. As I had mentioned, we were doing 2 different shows at that point in time. I don't think Chuck was around at that point, so it was, and Bob wasn't really doing wrestling at that stage, so Buzz did one of the shows. And eventually he moved into upstate New York to promote the New York territory. And Pedro Martinez had an office in the Buffalo Memorial Auditorium, which Buzz took over. There's another drain on the old finances, paying rent on an office in the Memorial Auditorium. So Buzz, nothing really happened with the New York territory. Pretty much went bust. He left, went back to Tennessee, which is where he's from. His real name was Everardo Beasley. And he died in 1987. He was working back in radio in Memphis at that time at age 54.
How do you get from Everardo Beasley to Buzz Benson?
No.
Well, this is no different than from Dave Brzezinski to SuperMouth Dave Drason, I guess.
He's a character. There's a famous interview of him and Bobo Brazil all over YouTube.
Yeah, and then the Sheik's nephew, Mike Thomas, also did a little commentary, didn't he?
Didn't do commentary. He did ring announcing.
Ring
His whole thing
announcing?
was
Okay.
becoming a wrestler.
Okay, yeah.
So he did the ring announcing and built up and was learning wrestling. And they brought me in, and the two of us split the ring announcing duties at Kobo. And eventually then he segued into actually wrestling on the show. But there's another, not a relative of the Sheik, who was a very famous announcer very early on by the name of Ernie Roth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, not only did Ernie do, TV commentary in San Francisco, also in Calgary, here, of course, down in Ohio.
Yeah.
And didn't he also do weather reports too? Almost like Chuck Allen? Or
Somebody said he did, yeah, in Canton maybe?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But yeah, he, at the time they had a show on Channel 61 from Cleveland, and Ernie Roth hosted the show. And then a few weeks later, he evolved into Abdullah Farouk, and they had him on TV as the Weasel. Then the manager had this god-awful looking fake mustache and goatee on him as Abdullah Farouk, and he tried to disguise his voice, and Bob Finnegan took over as the host. So yeah, old Ernie Roth was there's another guy who was here for a cup of coffee. He handled the ring announcing and things in Lima by the name of Rick Bratton, and his son Boomer announced a commentator for Power Bomb Wrestling in Toledo several years ago. Really, really good announcer. Another guy from Toledo, Bob Malik. They started me on TV and at Kobo, and they decided they wanted somebody different for a while, so they sent me back to, well, I had never left Cincinnati. I was still in college, and they put Bob Malik on the air. And I've got a picture of him. You'll probably recognize him. But he didn't last very long, maybe 6 months or so. He was always, his day job was Channel 24 in Toledo. He was staff announcer and host of a variety show kind of thing there, and so he continued that.
And then we also have to give kudos to, the Dick DeBruiser promotion and his, TV that appeared on Channel 9 for a while. And as a former wrestler, and, he did announcing and commentary, throughout the WWA territory. That would be Sam Menaker.
Sure. Yeah.
All-time great, and he was, great on there. When he would interview Bobby Heenan, those two just worked off of each other perfectly. And Bobby would challenge him, and Menaker would, accept the challenge, and Bobby would back down. And oh God.
The gold standard, Lord Layton. I mean, he was the guy everybody aspired and respected, and I think in this area, if you grew up watching Lord Layton, you would say he was the best wrestling commentator of all time. I certainly say that. If you grew up with WTBS or Florida, you would say it's Gordon Soley. And Soley was fine. He was great. Nothing wrong with him.
Dick Lane out in L.A.
Yeah.
Just so many across the country. And it's what you grew up with.
Yeah.
That's who you would think.
I think so.
Here in our area, everybody would say, it would be Terry Sullivan. Oh, I mean Lord Layton.
Not me.
Now, since we do these random, commentaries and, stories and stuff, we also have to make corrections every now and then.
We're going to correct the record?
Yeah, somehow, and not that we gave the wrong information. It's because we said we don't think.
Yeah.
We didn't have, the facts. And a good friend of ours, Andrea Dubin, now known as Andrea Martin, shot us a note and said there's a correction. Tell the fans what that correction is.
The segment we did about Johnny Valentine, we talked about the plane crash which ended his career, put him on crutches for the rest of his life, almost killed him. He spent a long, long time in the hospital, and I said insurance never paid out. And that was not true. Andrea set the record straight, said insurance did pay for his hospitalization, but he got no money settlement. There was no damages or anything like that. So once he was out of the hospital, he was on his own for his continued care.
She also corrected us on one other note.
Oh, that regarded Greg Valentine and Johnny Valentine together in Detroit.
That's what we said. We didn't think that, Johnny Valentine and Greg Valentine, even, when he started here as Babyface Nelson, we don't think that they ever appeared on the same show together.
But we found photographic proof.
I don't know if it's photographic proof, but she told us that they appeared, I believe, in Canton or Akron, Ohio on the same show.
Yeah.
And it's like, we had no idea. And, we thank her for, correcting us and giving us that great information that we could pass along to you fans.
Yeah. And I have another correction. We did the rundown of referees some time ago, and just Alzheimer's. I forgot one of the most visible referees over the longest period of time, Hal Light. Mm-hmm. Remember him?
Yeah.
He was a great referee. Show you some pictures of him. Those of you who are familiar with wrestling from the day will recognize him. But, one thing about Hal is I had always heard that his father was a big deal in wrestling back in the 40s and the 50s.
Yeah.
Doing some research on him, oh my gosh, Harry Light was the promoter, not only in Detroit, but basically a large part of Michigan. You've heard of Bert Ruby.
Yeah.
Bert Ruby worked for Harry Light initially. You've heard of the National Wrestling Alliance. Harry Light was one of 6 people who founded the National Wrestling Alliance, along with Sam Muchnick, and that meeting determined the territories of the United States. They split the United States up into these territories, like the Detroit, Michigan, Ohio territory, California, Texas, blah, 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 all the Carolinas, and they all agreed not to compete with each other, which the federal government had something to say about a decade or 2 later. But nonetheless, Harry was there. He was one of the guys responsible for that. And I've lost my notes. Here we go. He was also responsible for booking the little people nationwide. They all worked out of one central booking office.
Right.
And at that point in time, it was Harry Light's office in Detroit. And Jack Britton was another guy who worked promoting the area for Harry Light. Jack Britton was Gino Brito's father,
right.
And he was responsible for the little people, making sure they got to where they needed to get, and once they got there, that they would show up on time and in condition to perform. So yeah, Harry Light was a boxer from France, moved to Montreal. We talked about Adam Weissmuller, one of the original promoters here in Detroit.
Yep.
Harry started off working for him,
right.
Working for Adam, and then took it over himself after World War II. He began the wrestling program, Motor City Wrestling, on Channel 7.
Right.
WXYZ TV. Began that in 1947.
Wow.
It was the first wrestling TV in Detroit, and business exploded with that TV. And the rest of his promotion costs then were cut in, like you had a TV show every week, didn't need to do postering or a lot of newspaper ads or anything like that. And basically the end of the story is around the mid-50s, Bert Ruby broke off, went on his own. Barnett and Doyle came in, big promotion, Cobo Arena, big money, and Harry Light retired from promoting.
And all because we forgot his son, Hal Light, the referee.
Isn't that just an amazing story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for bringing that up.
Sure.
And thanks, Andrea, again, for that correction that, we pass along to our fans. And now, Terry, as we usually close out the show with an introduction, let me see if I can come up with a new one for you. Wait, I've got it. You just mentioned the midgets. The little people who, worked out of, the Detroit downtown hotel.
Later on, out of Lord Littlebrook's office, and where's he from? Kansas City?
Kansas City, yes.
Yeah.
How about you take us out with an introduction for a match against probably 2 of the greatest little people to ever grace the wrestling ring?
Fuzzy Cupid?
No, let's go with Little Beaver against Sky Low Low.
Little Beaver, huh? I
Yeah.
suppose I should get right to that. Little Beaver, where did we introduce him from? I don't remember. He was a Native American, but he was a Canadian.
Yeah, Canadian.
Canadian
I think he was,
Indian person
from the Fakawi tribe.
The
or something
Fagawi
like.
tribe, from the Gawi Indian Reservation in Montreal, Canada, weighing 98 pounds. It's Little Beaver. And who's his opponent?
No, Sky Low Low. Excuse me, I'm eating chocolate here.
And his opponent from Montreal, weighing 96 pounds, Sky Low Low.
Jesus Christ, that smells like this from 68 or Killer Carl Clark. Oh, Jesus Christ.
proud to say that I'm a part of IBW.
I take pride in IBW that we are a family-run company.
It's a fight. It's a sport. At IBW, tradition has always mattered.
You're gonna see world-class professional big-time wrestling at its best.
This ain't no sports entertainment. This is professional wrestling.
International big-time wrestling's the fix. Each and every week, your fix of IBW action. You want entertainment? Look no further than Rocks TV.
International Big Time Wrestling!
Wrestling fans, if you like what you've seen, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also don't forget to ring that bell.